Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Qi Zhi. Coming up in this edition, mediators are in Cairo for a new round of Gaza ceasefire talks. Media reports say Ukraine has attacked Moscow with almost a dozen drones. And the US Vice President Kamala Harris has formally accepted the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. We begin on the Middle East. The US and Israeli delegations are in Cairo for a new round of talks. A major sticking point is related to the Philadelphia corridor. Sources say the Israeli Prime Minister insists on an army presence along the corridor, which Israel sees as an important step to prevent the flow of weapons into Gaza. There are also conflicting reports on whether any progress has been made. Jonathan Regev has more from Tel Aviv.
It leaves us just as confused as we were before, to be honest, because of the different statements coming out of both sides. If you listen to the American side, where President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, not only the Vice President, but also the Democratic candidate for presidency, both of them speaking with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, both of them on the call. And if you listen to the American side, then the reports say that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel is willing to do some more concessions in order to achieve a deal. If you listen to the comments coming out of Jerusalem, it is not exactly that. The main comment coming saying that Israel reiterated its commitment to maintain its presence in the Philadelphia corridor, which is a very big point of contention now between the two sides, between Israel and the United States and Egypt, because the Philadelphia corridor, of course, separates Gaza from Egypt. So the statement coming out of Jerusalem saying that Israel has reiterated its position of maintaining presence in the Philadelphia corridor. So a lot of confusion. How important is this issue for the American administration? We can perhaps understand this from the words coming out of the American ambassador to the United Nations, urging the Security Council to pressure all sides to accept an agreement. How important is this for the administration? An agreement now which would bring a ceasefire to Gaza and hostages to Israel would be a major boost for the administration, for Kamala Harris, for the elections, which are now less than 2.5 months away. Very important for the Americans, but at least for now, it seems that both Israel and Hamas still have some point to come along to agreement, and Egypt as well. Many obstacles still on the way for this agreement, which I say again is extremely important for the American administration.
That was Jonathan Regev in Tel Aviv. Palestinians in Gaza are on the move again following Israel's latest evacuation orders. The move has triggered panic among the displaced as to what might come next. Akam al-Satari reports from Han Yunis.
According to the UN sources, around 100,000 Palestinians have already moved from different places in Deir al-Balah area, Gaza Central area and Khan Yunis area after the most recent evacuation orders were made, and also after the limited, as described by the Israeli army, the limited ground operation started in the south of Deir al-Balah and the north of Khan Yunis. According to the UNRWA, around 200,000 others were moving inside Gaza and the north also because of some of the ground operations that has driven larger segments of the population further into the western area of the Gaza city and the north. According also to the Palestinian health sources, around 42 Palestinians or more than 42 Palestinians were killed. More of 25 of them were killed because of the ongoing ground operation in Gaza Central area and also in Khan Yunis area. According to the medical sources, there is a non-stop flow of the bodies and of the injured people because of the ongoing bombardment that has been taking place in Khan Yunis eastern and western area, and also in the very north of Khan Yunis and Hamad city, where there is a ground operation that has started 4 days ago and that is still continuous, and that makes the Palestinians fear that the Israeli army is planning to cut the road between Deir al-Balah area and Khan Yunis area. The coming hours would tell the purpose of the ground operation that has started and that has claimed dozens of lives so far.
That was Akam al-Satari reporting in southern Gaza. In Europe, media reports say Ukraine has attacked Moscow with almost a dozen drones. The attack follows an incursion by Ukrainian forces into Russia's Kursk region. Alyos Milankovich has more.
It is life as usual in Moscow on Wednesday. The construction of new residential buildings in the city center was in full swing. traffic congestion on the roads, and cruise ships docked at the port awaiting passengers at the Moscow River. Nothing indicates there was a massive drone attack overnight. Russian authorities say 11 Ukrainian drones were shot down on the outskirts of Moscow. No casualties or damages were reported in the aftermath of the attack, but the mere fact that those drones reached so deep into the Russian territory was a cause for concern. And while Moscow came under fire, the situation was far more complicated in the Kursk and Belgorod regions. As fighting continues there, more people fleeing the area.
That's Alyosha Milenkovich reporting. In the United States, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has formally accepted the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. She becomes the first black and Indian woman to accept a major party presidential nomination. Harris made her acceptance speech in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention. Hendrik Brandy has more from Chicago.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
The actual election is on November 5th. There's still a lot to be done. Remember, Kamala Harris didn't enter the race until a month ago when President Biden announced that he was not running for re-election. So she's had a very short time to prepare and to get ready for this big moment. She has a lot to tell the crowd tonight, a lot to tell the national TV audience that is tuning in about her background, her plans for the country if she were to win the election.
And I will tell you, these fights were not easy, and neither were the elections that put me in those offices. We were underestimated at practically every turn, but we never gave up because the future is always worth fighting for.
Kamala Harris obviously felt she needed as a partner on this presidential ticket. Walz had a very warm reception here last night. He talked a lot about his background. He was a former member of the military for 24 years. He was a high school teacher for a long time in Minnesota, and he was also a football coach. His team won the state championship while he was coach there. He used a lot of football analogies to talk about how the campaign is like a football game and that it's in the fourth quarter and that the Democrats may be 3 points behind, but they're on offense, they have the ball, and he says they have the team to win. So a lot of enthusiasm about Walz. People are just getting to know him, but I think he's going to be a big asset to Kamala Harris as they head into the home stretch of this campaign.
That's Hendrik Brandy on the U.S. Democratic National Convention. In Asia, a plane with 9 people on board has crashed in eastern Thailand. Thai officials say those on board include 5 Chinese nationals, 2 Thai hotel staff, and 2 Thai pilots. A search and rescue operation is underway after the charter flight crashed into a mangrove forest. Chowarat Rumjirano reports from Bangkok.
Well, the investigation is definitely still ongoing. In the late afternoon, we learned that there was a crash of a small domestic passenger plane shortly after takeoff from the Suvarnabhumi International Airport into a mangrove swamp area in Chachoengsao province, about 40 kilometers away from the airport. It appears that all 9 on board were killed, according to Thailand's Civil Aviation Authority. 7 passengers and 2 pilots were listed on board. And according to the records here, it was about 1 hour after the takeoff and 11 minutes after the contact was lost that the rescuers rushed to the area and scattered body parts were found. 5 are believed to be Chinese tourists, 2 female crew members, and a Thai pilot and a co-pilot. Unfortunately, a 12-year-old was amongst the dead as well as a 13-year-old. So it seems as if it is a very big concern indeed. Right now, the search is ongoing for the black box. We don't know the cause of the crash, but we do know that the airplane itself is a turboprop plane. It's a Cessna Caravan C208B by the Thai Flying Service Company. And it was supposedly going towards Trak province and to a very luxurious resort there. And because of the muddy terrain, search and rescue has been quite slow. Eyewitnesses say in the residential nearby the area, they said that they heard a crash, a possible explosion before the airplane hit the ground. Right now, it comes at a very sensitive time, especially since Thailand is expecting and hoping that there will be a recovery of the economy driven by tourism. And with this news, there could be concerns about the safety measures for tourists coming into Thailand, specifically since we're seeing here it is a case of a luxurious resort offering this flight to travelers from Bangkok to their resort.
That was Chawarat Yongjiranong reporting. Finally, in Africa, the United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, has appealed for $16.5 million to scale up the response to the Mpox outbreak in East and South Africa. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is among the hardest affected countries. President Felix Tshisekedi has allowed the first disbursement of $10 million to fight the outbreak. Conditions at displacement camps in the eastern part of the country are increasing the risk of Mpox to spread. The new variant appears to spread more easily through routine close contact, and children have been particularly affected. Wane Mungai has more.
Furaha Makabo is a worried mother. She and her 3 children live at the Muja displaced persons camp in DRC's Nyiragongo territory. She was forced to flee armed conflict in February that killed her husband. She's now staring at another threat to her family, Mpox. All of her children have contracted the viral disease. Her youngest has been discharged, but the other 2 are still in care.
They are still in the hospital until now. They are not yet cured. They're alone because I couldn't have someone to stay with my youngest here at the camp. If I take her there, she could be contaminated.
Mpox is spreading quickly through the displacement camps. At least 10 new infections are recorded every day at Muja. That's according to Swiss NGO Medea. Overcrowding, limited access to health care and poor sanitation at camps in the region are leaving displaced people more vulnerable to infection.
These living conditions cannot protect us from this disease. Our desire is for our government to end the war so that we can return home. In Masisi, we do not buy water. We draw flowing water from rivers. You wash yourself as many times as you want. What we are experiencing here is a very serious problem for us displaced people. Imagine fleeing a war and then catching a deadly disease in the camp where we live, even though you were not killed in the war.
The DRC remains the epicenter of the Mpox outbreak in Africa. Humanitarian organizations, though, are warning that if left unchecked, the disease could spiral into a more devastating global pandemic.
That was Wane Mungai reporting. Now recapping the headlines. Mediators are in Cairo for a new round of Gaza ceasefire talks. Media reports say Ukraine has attacked Moscow with almost a dozen drones. And U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has formally accepted the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to The Beijing Hour, a 1-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Qizhi. Thanks for listening.